It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, July 28th, 2025, and you know what that means. It's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 350 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. I am Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm joined by my comrade in gaming commentary, the Miggity Mac, also known as Maction. Mac, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, dude. Excited. There are big things coming up at the end of July, of course. But yeah, doing pretty darn well.
Nice. What's coming up at the end of July, in case people don't already know?
Well, just in case anybody hasn't heard, the Podcast Awards, that's a thing. You can vote in it. You do have to go to Podcast Awards, and you can vote there for Mr. Nice Guy and I in our capacity as podcasters. We're up for nominations in People's Choice, Games and Hobbies, and Best Black-Hosted Podcast. Now, you do have to jump through a hoop or two.
It's worth it.
It's worth it, and we've jumped through that hoop, and so have many others for the past, 5 years or so. And so hopefully we can count on your help getting us over the finish line this time as well. But that ends on the last day of this month, on July 31st, so you don't have much time. And as you're hearing this in your podcast feed, there might be almost no time left, so please, don't wait. Go now. There will be a link in the doobly-doo to help you. And I even made a video walkthrough showing you exactly how to do it start to end, just in case, like me, you are a visual learner. So that's the super exciting thing coming up at the end of July. There's others, but that's the one that I think really encapsulates what's going on for me and us.
Would you say you're a visual learner, Mac?
Oh, absolutely.
Noted. Well, Mac, my weekend was fantastic, dude.
Oh, yeah?
I've found that on weekends, not that I don't enjoy the week, the 5-day week, but on weekends, I'm trying to fit as much fun as possible into the weekend. And I always succeed. I never fail at fitting a ton of fun into the weekend. So, Mac, this weekend, went mini golfing with my sons at this place called Swing Time Golf. And it's an 18-hole mini golf course. It's one of the best that I've ever been to, outside of maybe some of the ones they have in Florida, where there's just mini golf every step. So we're on this hole, and I believe it's the longest hole in America. It's a super long straight shot. I hit the ball. I kid you not, Mac. Hole in one. Yeah. And it's one of those situations where you immediately think, man, I wish I was recording that. And my boys were jumping up and down, my sons. We were having a good time. There was no one behind us. And so I said, well, guys, why don't I try again? So I do it again, and I say, this time you guys have got to record so that if I actually get a hole in one, we have record of this. So one of my sons is recording, and I hit the ball, and it goes past the hole, and I'm like, I missed it. It bounces off the back and rolls back in. So I got 2 in a row, and they were recording. But here's the thing. My oldest son, the one who was not recording, walked in front of the camera and blocked the shot. No. And also, my son who was recording, the middle son, put the camera down when we thought it wasn't going to go in. So there's no video of this. But Mac, this is a redemption story. So I got to tell you what happened later.
Yeah.
There's a hole that my middle son has gotten a hole in one on in the past. And I said, hey, let's try to recreate this shot. So I said, do the exact thing you did before you got the hole in one last time, where he called it. He said, I'm going to get a hole in one. He does it. He misses. Once again, no one behind us. So I say, try it again. So he hits the ball. It's bouncing. It's a downhill hole. It takes a few seconds. My youngest son is standing on the green, and I said, you need to move. I said, move, buddy. Move. He doesn't move. The ball hits his foot, goes into the hole.
What?
And we got it on video. I don't know if that counts in golf. but it's a great story and a great video.
Dude, that is excellent. I think that counts. And man, that sounds like so much fun. And I believe in your skill, my dude. So congratulations on your not one, but 2 holes in one.
Yeah.
And congratulations to the boys on their holes in one as well.
Thanks, man. Great weekend. Also played some laser tag, saw a movie, but we'll talk about that later. I want to hear quickly, what else is new with you besides the podcast awards, man? What is going on in Mac's life?
Dude, nothing really. Just spending some time relaxing on the weekends, watching some stuff that we'll talk about later, but just, spending some time with the spouse,
Good.
hanging out, enjoying the sunshine. The weather out here is amazing, and just really enjoying good time with, time walking outside, enjoying time with people.
It's a good time to be alive, Mac. And it's also a good time for us to do what we do best, which is hop right up in that gaming news.
Let's do it, man. What is new in video gaming?
So much, and thank you for tuning into episode 350 of Two Nerds in a Pod. I feel like we should be celebrating 350. It's not like a round number, but once again, 365 means you could listen to the pod every day for a year without repeating. So we'll celebrate at 365, and we'll celebrate when we win, hopefully, the podcast awards. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, Mac, there's some gaming news to talk about today. Let's dive in. I want to talk to you first about a Lego set that was recently announced. This is on The Verge, written by Sean Hollister. And here's what Sean writes. We asked for the perfect Lego Nintendo Game Boy. Did Lego deliver? After revealing this January that it would take up the challenge, it has revealed a most impressive take on the 1989 classic that'll cost a relatively reasonable $60 in the US. It's up for pre-order today, as of when he wrote that. For an October 1st ship date at 3.5 inches wide and 5.5 centimeters tall, it looks like it'll have almost the same original dimensions as the original. As you can see in the images below, this Game Boy doesn't rely on miniature hats for its iconic fuchsia A and B buttons. Lego has seemingly created a pitch-perfect button that appears to recess into the frame. The console's curves are also captured remarkably well, and unless I'm very mistaken, it comes with printed tiles rather than sticker labels to help replicate the Game Boy's many iconic labels for its buttons, etc., etc. Mac, it looks like it also comes with 2 games, quote-unquote games, and some screens to make it look like you're playing. I've never been a Lego person, but I am a gamer.
Yeah.
Level of interest in a Lego Game Boy or in any type of Lego replica of a console?
So, many years ago, my family, we moved from LA to southern Utah. And when we did, we had a neighbor who had tons of Legos, like a cubic yard worth of Lego pieces. And when we moved, this neighbor came over and smuggled 3 or 4, I think it was 4, of those giant plastic bins with the interlocking tops. You know the ones?
Sure.
There are 3 or 4 of those filled with Legos and smuggled them onto the back of our moving truck. So we get to southern Utah, we move there, and that's when we find out that we've got a treasure trove, a wealth, an insane amount of Legos. More Legos than you could ever know what to do with.
Sure.
I've lived the Lego dream, but never had to pay the price of Lego admission. To this day, I still have very fond memories of Lego, but they ask such a high price for any of their sets. So it always seems ridiculous to me, is what I'm saying.
It's interesting. I can't collect stuff that you just look at. For whatever reason, I'm not someone who can collect things that are just on display.
Yeah.
I like things that are interactive, right?
Like video games, perhaps?
Like video games, right? Whether they're digital or physical, even though I prefer physical, right? I like stuff that I can do something with. And so this has never appealed to me, and candidly, I don't get the appeal at all. It'd be one thing if the DMG Game Boy was $500 and you just wanted something cool to display. But as I Google the Game Boy DMG, I'm seeing Game Boy Colors for $89.99 at GameStop. I'm seeing a Game Boy on eBay without the bezel, but it's 6 games and a Game Boy DMG for $100. So my thing is, if you're really wanting a Game Boy to display, I would say go buy an actual Game Boy and pick up a couple of games and you can actually play it. Analog Pocket's not for everyone, but I think, buy a Game Boy and play it.
As a fellow baller on a budget, I appreciate that for a significantly less, I can have all the advantages of having something to look at, but also having something functional.
Yeah, and then you know what? You start collecting slowly, and before you know it, you have a pretty solid collection of Game Boy games, which is one of, if not the best handheld console ever made. It's a great one. It was revolutionary, and I feel like everyone should own one. If you already do and you're buying the Lego set, great, but if you do not own one and you're buying the Lego set, what are you doing? Well, Mac, let's keep it moving. I want to talk a little bit about esports, and I know that this is not something that you are into outside of speedrunning, but this is a super interesting concept to me. And I was spent part of this weekend watching some of the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 tournament. Really, really enjoyed it. My son was watching Fortnite. We had a good time. And I found this article today about Halo. Here's what it says on GamesRadar.com by Khan Sarin. The Halo Championship Series, the shooter's official live esports event, is moving on from Halo Infinite next year, which prompts some obvious questions about Master Chief's future. Halo Studios announced as much in a blog post where it said that 2 upcoming majors and a full-fat Halo World Championship are still coming later this year. But once a World Championship is crowned in October, the HCS will be retiring Halo Infinite from official HCS competition, the studio said, and Halo Infinite's competitive scene will still receive support, though it'll be moving on from Halo Infinite for official competition. Esports lead Tashir, aka Tashi Hassandajek, explained the move comes as the studio continues to shift more and more towards the next era of Halo. So, Mac, obviously this prompts a question about if the next Halo is coming, but my question for you is this. And not so much why, but what are your thoughts on an esports scene that embraces older games? An esports scene that embraces a Halo 3, as opposed to the newest Halo.
Like you said, I'm big into the speedrunning community, and there is a wide breadth of years of gaming represented. Very much the retro scene for me, and those speedrunners are very much still a big part of the scene. I feel like that esports community very, very much is all about the game, no matter where it is. So to me, esports has always been about, games old and new. I would love it if there was a bit more recognition for the old stuff. Now, granted, we get something like every year we'll get awesome games done quick.
Sure.
And in the summer, we'll usually get summer games done quick. So I think there's still plenty of room for that sort of thing. But there just aren't the kind of big prizes for that, which is a little bit unfortunate. But you know what? Maybe someday we'll be there. And I think just how many people tune in to something like awesome games done quick.
That's it.
There is certainly the crowd there. I think maybe these esports scenes could tune into that, plug into that, if they were a bit more expansive on what they brought on.
And that's my thing. Now, I get that you want the best of the best of the best to all be playing the same game, and particularly when there's annual releases, viewership is probably going to be best for the newest game, right? Mm-hmm. But that said, I think that probably there's a pretty big Halo community, and if you could get everyone universally to say, hey, we're doing Halo 3, we're doing Halo Reach, whatever it is, that could be a kind of a cool retro esports thing that we get. It's interesting that they're moving on from Halo Infinite without the new Halo being announced. I don't think it necessarily means that there will be a new one. I have fingers crossed that this actually means that there will be a reversion back to something classic. And proof that this can be successful is seen in games like Counter-Strike, right? That game has been in the competitive scene for a very, very long time, with updates, but not with a new one being released short of the new one that was released a couple years ago, Counter-Strike 2. So they can be retro and still be successful.
Given to understand, StarCraft is still...
Yeah. So once again, I know we're talking apples and oranges, annual release versus something that only comes out every decade, but I'd like to see some more retro stuff in the esports scene. That's me. Old guy here.
Well, I'm right there with you, so we're both old guys.
Yeah. Last news story, Mac, and this is something that has come up a lot in the past as we've talked about things like microtransactions and kids getting a hold of mom and dad's credit card. This is on Engadget.com, written by Ian Carlos Campbell. Ian writes, Microsoft is implementing an age verification system on Xbox accounts to comply with the UK's Online Safety Act. And in a new blog post announcing the move, the company suggests it'll come to other countries too. Players in the UK who indicate on their account that they're 18 years or older will now begin seeing notifications encouraging them to verify their age, Microsoft says. The process is optional for now, and players will be able to enjoy playing games until early 2026, when the verification will become mandatory to retain full access to social features on Xbox, such as voice or text communication and game invites. If you don't verify, you'll still be able to make purchases, play games, and earn achievements, but social features will be limited to your friends. Mac, I have some very strong opinions on age verification. What do you think about this?
I think Mr. Nice Guy works hard for the money. So hard for it, honey. And we need to treat him and his credit card right. And we need to not let everybody just go to town on those V-Bucks with Mr. Nice Guy's credit card. At the same time, if the problem is buying things that you weren't supposed to, how much does this stop that sort of thing? You know, I guess the question is, what's the objective? And does this have the sort of minimally invasive method of accomplishing that objective?
And to be clear, it sounds like it says you'll still be able to make purchases. This will just limit the social features to your friend. Mm-hmm. I mean, the obvious joke here is like, oh, I stole my mom and dad's credit card, but now I got to verify my age. Like, that's just a bridge too far that I'm not willing to lie about, right? So to me, that's hilarious. But the idea that social features will be limited if you're under 18, I think is actually smart. Mm-hmm. But I also think that someone who wants to have access to them is just going to put in a fake age. Dude, listen, every time Steam asks me for my age, I just scroll down and put in a random age.
Yeah.
Just because it's easier than finding the exact date.
Same.
It's always January 1st, whatever year I've chosen today.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure kids are doing it too.
Oh, yeah. 100%. It's not that big of a deal. Is it annoying? Sure. But I guess it's kind of minimally invasive, so I'm not going to complain all that much.
Yeah, me neither.
But I always have to ask, what's the objective? Does it even get us there? Much less does it even effectively get us there. And, you know, kids are smart. Although it does remind me of the settlement that Epic for Fortnite made with the FTC.
Sure.
And one of the things that they got dinged for which Epic paid $500 million, was, among other things, they weren't really doing anything to protect kids from certain online interactions. And one of the things that after they paid $500 million, they're like, we will now make it so if we know that you're a youth, we'll have those social features turned off by default. So it's sort of a thing that a few different companies have been doing lately. So, yeah. As the one person here who does have kids, I can't speak for anybody who's here in the chat. I don't know Antonio's situation. Love to see you, Antonio. With respect to you, how do you take? Do you think this is good for your kids, bad for your kids, indifferent?
I think I'm indifferent because we've already set things up so that my kids aren't talking to people, right? At least as far as I know, kids sometimes do stuff without their parents knowing, right?
Sure.
So I'm not that concerned about the social features. Like we've set things up. I guess I'm indifferent in that regard because we've already done things on our own.
Gotcha.
Well, hey, slow news week, if you couldn't tell. But the podcast awards are soon, so vote for us there. And that has been our news for the week.
All right. Well, now that we've taken a look at what's going on around us right now, let's take a little look into the past with some video game history. And I've got some good stuff. Now, I do benefit from the fact that last week we did not get a chance to get together.
That's right.
So I'm just kind of saving that history from last time to throw out there. So in the last couple of weeks, in years before, we've had some fantastic things. And I want to start with the more recent one that I wanted to highlight, a release in 2016 for the PC, a game called Song of the Deep. Lovely, lovely game. I wouldn't quite call it a cozy game, as it has a sort of Metroidvania action, not quite platform, but platform-esque. You're flying around, well, you're scooting around in a little submarine underwater, and you're interacting with all these different things, fighting off enemies, solving puzzles. Sometimes it gets a little bit, hectic. So, the anxiety comes in. That music gets real intense. But for the most part, it is this lovely, lovely game that features excellent narration from a lovely, lovely voice, and just a heartwarming story about a girl trying to find her dad who's lost at sea. And it's real good. I loved it and revisit it every so often. Released in 2003 for the Xbox and the PC, a little game called Knights of the Old Republic.
Sure.
I don't know if we've ever heard. Yeah, we've heard of it.
KOTOR, of course.
Yeah, KOTOR. Have you played it, Mr. Nice Guy?
You know what? Just briefly, my man. And those aren't the type of games that appeal to me on a Star Wars level, but on a game level, I have to acknowledge its brilliance.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it is rated among the best games of all time. When you've got a top 100 list, KOTOR is usually on there. And I particularly enjoyed it. It had a sort of back-end mechanics that was based off of 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. So it was a computer RPG in the style of the great CRPGs, and also had this sort of D&D back-end. Sometimes that worked out well, sometimes that didn't work out so well, but for the most part, it was a solid game. I have played Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. I do have copies for my Xbox and quite enjoy it, but nonetheless, it's a great game. There are ways to experience it now. If you haven't, I'd recommend it if you're looking for something new to get into.
Nice.
But Mr. Nice Guy, I have
What's
something.
that?
I have
What do you have?
the biggest thing in video gaming. The world record was set in 2015 for longest video game marathon.
Okay.
This may sound familiar because I have mentioned it before
Yes.
at around this time of year, but I'm gonna bring it up. We've got new people around. People, not everybody's gone back and listened to the backlog. Mr. Nice Guy, if you had to guess how many hours the longest video game marathon was, and if you had to guess what video game it was played on, or even narrow it down to a genre of video games, what would you say? And for everybody who's here with us live in the chat, feel free to chime in, throw out your answers. What genre of game, what game, or how many hours? No Googling, just off the dome.
Yeah, so off the top of the dome, I'm going to go, for the game, I'm going to go with Tetris.
Solid.
Because I'm going to assume it's something that doesn't have, online requirements, right? Or online multiplayer. Internet could mess up your streak if it did. And Halo, I guess, hypothetically, could be played infinitely, depending on the version. And so as far as time, I'm going to go a day and a half. So 36 hours.
36 hours. That is excellent. Excellent stuff, Mr. Nice Guy. I like it. Now, the world record for longest video game marathon here is done with, and I should, put this out there, is done with Guinness Book of World Records standard.
Yes.
Which they allow you every unit time. Guinness records, they give you a 10-minute break every hour that you're going, which you are allowed to bank. Which means if you played for 2 nonstop days, you could get an 8-hour shot at a sleep break. And that would still count.
Sure.
In Guinness World Records. So, I will say that the previous world record was 136 hours, under Guinness rules, 136 hours of playing Call of Duty Black Ops 2.
Wow, okay.
And so 2015 is when that 136 hours got dethroned by 138 hours of the game Just Dance 2015.
What?
Yes, Carrie Swidecki, a teacher in Southern California, and as part of a fundraiser that she put together, she decided that she was just like, man, I could do Just Dance 2015 forever. And so she did, or at least nearly forever, 138 hours.
Basically forever.
10-minute break every hour. And obviously, no shade on the person who played Call of Duty Black Ops 2. It is rough to play game for marathon sessions. I think the longest I personally have ever done is, I think, 14 hours at a go when I was doing my Mega Man marathon for Thanksgiving, and was doing all the games 1 through 10. But yeah, I can hardly imagine being able to do something, even something so incredibly physical. 138 hours, that's 5 3/4 of a day.
It's a long time.
It's insane. And Carrie Swidecki is, as far as I'm aware, still the pinnacle, still the world record holder for longest video game marathon, and she did it playing a dancing game. Mad respect. And that was just a couple weeks ago in 2015. And that's some video game history for us this week.
Love it, love it, love it. I once tried to do a 24-hour stream back when I was like regularly streaming on Twitch.
Yeah.
It was the day, I'll never forget this, it was the day that Destiny came out.
Ooh.
And I started streaming, and I think I got like a few hours in, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to bed. Love you guys. I am not doing this for 24 hours. And there's people who do it all the time, and I don't know how they do it, man.
Yeah, it takes the toll. I mean, I knew that I was not at the top of my game after a few hours. So, like, and yeah, I've seen people do regularly like 12-hour streams on Twitch. Whew, yeah, I just can't do that. So,
to each their own.
It was a good time nonetheless. Even my big long streams, it was a good time. But still, that's very much a few and far between.
Totally get it. Well, Mac, it's time for our next segment called Topic of the Week.
Woo, woo, woo.
A segment where we talk about something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it. This week's news story. Hopefully it doesn't overlap with your legalese for later. I'm pretty sure it won't. But this is from GameSpot.com, written by Eddie Macick. Here's what Eddie writes. Sony Interactive Entertainment has filed a lawsuit against Tencent over its Is this what you were going to talk about, Mac? You're smiling.
Yes, but that's
Dang
okay.
it!
I've got other... See, this is the thing. I came prepared with 2 things because I wasn't sure what to talk about for legalese. So this has done it for me, Mr. Nice Guy. Let's talk about this for the topic, and I've got something else for legalese.
Dang it. Well, let's talk about this. So, shout out to CV Tech, man. Old school buddy in the chat. Good to see you, man. Okay, Sony Interactive Entertainment has filed a lawsuit against Tencent over its upcoming game Light of Motiram, with Sony saying it is a slavish clone of the Horizon series. The suit, which was filed on July 25th in California and was seen by GameSpot, sees Sony going after Tencent for copyright and trademark infringement, with Sony demanding a trial by jury. They don't want to settle. They want a trial by jury. Sony said it is trying to prevent the release of Light of Motiram. Quote, Tencent's copying of Horizon is so blatant that the public has described it as crazy, insane, and shameless, Sony said in a lawsuit. SIE further alleged that Tencent came to the company with a pitch to license the Horizon IP, to which SIE declined. Sony said Tencent is, quote, deliberately causing numerous game lovers to confuse Light of Motiram as the next game in the Horizon series by way of Tencent promoting it with a rip-off of Horizon's Aloy character. They go on to say that it's causing irreparable injury, and they're seeking statutory damages of up to $150,000 for each separate work in the Horizon franchise infringed, as well as for Tencent to deliver SIE's lawyers and all products and marketing materials bearing what it claims to be our prohibited marks, so Sony team can destroy them. Mac, what do you think, man? You were planning on talking about this, so I assume you have something to say.
Oh yeah, well, just a little bit of stuff that I think is worth noting. I did go through the complaint, and obviously, what we have is we just have what Sony says about all this. We don't have what Tencent's going to say. But putting their best argument forward, their lawsuit goes a little bit like this. They're like, hey, step number 1, the Horizon franchise, it's unique, it's ours. The setting and narrative, unique. the Horizon franchise is successful and known. Tencent knows about this game. Everybody knows about this game. Now, we can quibble about any of those specific items, right? Like, is the franchise unique? Is the setting and narrative unique? I mean, you might get some, freshmen in philosophy majors who are just like, oh, nothing's unique since Aristotle or whatever. But in general, amongst video games, like, yeah, sure, we're not doing a whole lot of that Horizon, setting and narrative. Okay. Of course, obviously they bring up, that Tencent was just like, hey, we want to license the Horizon, and Sony shut that down. They also say that not only did Tencent copy the setting and the narrative, but also they're like, hey, here's some photos from, side-by-sides. They copied our NPCs, they copied the main characters, they copied enemies, equipment, and also mechanics. And so they just lay all that out in their complaint. And it seems reasonably compelling, but to be fair, if you get through a complaint, a legal complaint, or a legal answer, and you don't find it compelling, then somebody's getting paid way too much money, because that's the name of the game. So we'll see, but it does seem that Tencent is playing around.
There's a quote that fits perfectly in this situation, and it's not one that Mac's going to be familiar with. But for those of you that are, he copied my whole flow, word for word, bar for bar.
No!
That's exactly what is happening here. Listen, I think that Tencent knows exactly what they're doing.
It would be impossible not to. This isn't like some indie game out of nowhere.
Right. And I watched the video. It looks exactly like Horizon Zero Dawn. My only issue with this is that, are we going to be as critical of Sony for doing this as we are with Nintendo when they sue companies over things like Pal World? And I feel like Nintendo does it more frequently, or at least more publicly. Sony seems to do it less frequently and maybe a little bit more privately. And so, potentially people aren't going to be as mad at Sony. Potentially Mac isn't going to get mad at Sony, and say that it's the big bad company suing the little guy, or the littler big company, right?
Yeah, the littler big company Tencent.
That no one's heard of.
I have a feeling more like, throw one sword in the middle and just be like, let them fight. When it comes to Tencent, Sony, and other big companies, I'm just like, you know what? Let them go ahead and fight this out. Just so long as both of them lose, I'm fine.
As long as they just fight to the death and end up limping away, right? Being exhausted and out of money, Max says. I disagree. But CV Tech in the chat, shout out to CV Tech, says, didn't a lot of other companies copy Batman Arkham Asylum combat at one point? And that's a valid point, but I think that copying a mechanic in a game is probably not the same thing as copying, quote unquote, a game, right? The premise, the artwork, and that's why they said they want $150,000 for each instance of infringement, is because they believe you copied this, you copied that, you copied this other thing, and we're going to make you pay for it. Now, Mac, here's my thing. At what point, and this is really rhetorical, but at what point does similarity become copyright infringement, right? It's not like they're using the name of the character. They're just creating something very, very similar. I'm pretty sure that the creators of South Park get sued a lot for parodying other people, parodying events. And in fact, we know that this happens in gaming because Rockstar was sued for the cover of GTA 5 because Lindsay Lohan thought that it was supposed to be her likeness, right? So this type of stuff happens all the time in this industry. I'm pretty sure we talked about tattoos, Mac, being owned by the quote-unquote owned by the artist, right? Who put them on LeBron James or Carmelo or whoever, and now they're in a video game and they want royalties. So there's really no stop to this. And if we can't go after each of those other instances that I just mentioned and win, who's to say that Sony will win this one?
Yeah, well, I think one of the big things that you do need to show when it comes to copying, especially a copyrighted work like a video game, is to show, obviously, that there are similarities, that these similarities aren't things that you could have or would have just arrived at individually or independently, but that you were copying the homework. There are times where you can come into a scene with an idea that somebody's already done. Because it's not that there is no limit to creativity. It's that there is a practical limit to the creative things that are enjoyable or pleasant within a constraint. We could make a video game, Mr. Nice Guy, you and I, that, that you're always jumping, going down and to the left instead of up and to the right, as so many platformers are. But maybe there is something about up and to the right that is pleasant. Maybe it has something to do with the way we're taught to read or to write or anything like that. There are tons of things in the infinite scope of creativity that maybe we're not doing because it doesn't appeal the way that certain things do. And so there's always going to be some convergence of creativity. But in general, one of the things that they're usually looking for is, did you have access to that thing that they're saying that you copied? And how similar are these things? And especially if we can find like some code that is word for word that you may have copy and pasted.
Bar for bar.
Bar for bar. Or if we can find like part of your art team has downloaded copies of Alloy and other art assets from the game or other screenshots, that kind of stuff is pretty damning by way of, evidence for copying, things like that.
Yeah, G makes a really good point, and then we got to move on. He says, wow, I am shocked. The Chinese made a fake counterfeit version of another product. Do they think this is a fake Chanel handbag? Which I totally get his point and the snarkiness of what he's saying, which is this is something that happens a lot, right? With patents and infringement and things like that. And often it is done without consequence. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. Mac, any last words?
I am so glad that you wanted to talk about this today, Mr. Nice Guy. It's worth talking about. Two of the biggest names in video gaming going at it over the IP. I'm just popping popcorn over here.
I want the game to come out. Even if they lose, release it for free. That's been our topic of the week.
All right. Well, now we turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off of the ground. We call this Kick or Kick Start. For those of you who are new, Mr. Nice Guy and I, we are going to take a look at a crowdfunding project and say whether or not we think it should be kicked out of here or kickstarted. Mr. Nice Guy, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Would you rather talk about a gamification of D&D, or would you rather have a look at a game that harkens to Super Mario World Yoshi's Island?
Dude, I want the Yoshi's Island. I love D&D, but I gotta see the Yoshi's Island.
Alrighty, we'll save the other one for later. So this is Dono's Tale, and it is a game that the art style 100% Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, definitely that vibe. Now, in play style, it's got a little bit more Mega Man or Mega Man X stuff going on. In this game, you play a little... I think he's supposed to be a dragon. Yeah, pretty sure he's a dragon. He can shoot fireballs, so, so I'm going to say dragon. So you play this cute little dragon who happens to have several different power-ups, several different attacks, several different things that you can essentially right trigger and left trigger. You'll cycle through these different power-ups. One lets you like grab onto a wall. Another one gives you a sort of dash and slide. And since you can switch these power-ups, what's active on the fly, you'll have these situations where you might need to make use of the feather power-up to jump across a gap, the slide to get farther out, and then the grab power-up to grab onto something at the end. It looks dizzying, and I can hardly wait to fail so hard at this platformer because I am going to mess up those tight button combos. I can see a real potential for Super Meat Boy style difficulty, especially over instant death pits. Anyway, so the game is being put together by a team of 4 working on this indie game under Super Item Studios is the name for their game dev studio. This is their first Kickstarter. Even though they've created 2, this is the second time. This is a relaunch of this game as they tried to get it across the line and didn't quite make it. They're eyeing a launch on the Switch and on PC, several different storefronts, and PS5 and Xbox ports later on down the road. The launch is looking like to be December of 2026. So we're talking a year and change out, with the entry level price being $15 for a digital copy of the game. Now, they were looking for 10 grand to put this together and have reached 11 grand, so they are fully funded. I'll put that in quotes. But it is, it is dispositive that the previous goal from the previous launch was 20,000. They didn't quite make it there. And I think that's a more accurate description of what the game is going to take to bring to market. But anyway, I've done enough talking. Mr. Nice Guy, you've had a chance to take a look. What you thinking?
So I guess I have one question, and you answered one of the questions I had, which is what was the previous goal? But my question is, last time they launched in 2023, what was the release date at that point? Do you know?
Yes. So they tried to launch in 2022, and it was about the same release window. It was a little bit longer.
So this says something to me. It says that they weren't ever going to be done by then. Right? Mm. When they originally thought that they were going to have a 2022 Kickstarter and a 2023 release date, that wasn't the case. And money is not what would have sped that up. Don't try to argue with me, chat, that if they had gotten funded, that they would have got it out in a year. That's just not the case.
I'll take a little bit. It's
Please.
Like, if you had been funded, maybe it's possible that you wouldn't have had to maintain your full-time job.
Well,
possible. But at that level, at 20,000, I don't know if that could have gotten you away from your full-time job.
Exactly.
That could have at least gotten you down to part-time. So could have sped things up a little.
So that's just me keeping it real. But what I do like about this is they failed 4 years ago, and now they're back. They're trying to do it again. And I would hope that they had been working on the game in that time, and that maybe the reason they're asking for $10,000 this time is not just because they didn't get 20 last time, but it's because they've put in some work and now the costs remaining are less. And they've actually done that math. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt there. This is obviously just like a blatantly inspired, I won't say ripoff, but like blatantly inspired by Yoshi's Island, Mario World. Like even in the video I watched just now, the way that the guy is jumping is exactly like Yoshi and Yoshi's Island, and in Mario World. So the game looks great. Like I can't say that it's not. They have a bunch of YouTube videos. It looks like I just watched one while you were talking about them speedrunning one of the levels. So they're putting a lot of time into this. I'll tell you what this reminds me of. It reminds me of Deckline's Drops, one of the games we reviewed last year that had a very, very similar art style and similar movement scheme. And I think that we need more games like this. You can play them casually, you can have a good time, or you can speedrun it if you want. And this is the type of thing that I will play, but I don't want to wait a year for it to come out.
Give it to us now. I will say that there is a playable demo. As you know, that's a big thing that I'm looking for in these crowdfunding projects, proving that you can bring all the components of a game together in a successful and pleasing way. I played through it. The demo takes about 20 minutes if you just, walk through. It's got 6 levels, one level from 6 different thematic worlds.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, most all of them. Now, my suspicion is that you won't have access to the full suite of abilities at the beginning of the game, but rather you'll accumulate them as you get through the levels, so you'll have time to get comfortable with each new set of things. And that's very much sort of how it felt in this. Some of them were a little bit more heavy on this power-up. Some of them were a bit more heavy on that power-up. And it played nice. At about 20 minutes to get through those. 40 minutes, I think, if you were trying to get all of the optional sort of collectibles inside of the levels. And it certainly had some lovely moments where it was evoking, obviously, Mega Man a little bit for me. But yeah, all in all, though, I think it's pretty good. I like it, which is why I'm talking about it today. And I think $15, even if I have to wait a while, $15, I can go with you on a journey for that sort of thing.
I agree. That's the perfect price point for this type of game.
Yeah.
I don't really know what else to say. Like, this looks fantastic. I don't know if I gave it enough praise or if I just talked a little bit about the past Kickstarter. But it looks really fun, and it looks like the exact type of thing that you'd want to play on your Switch 2, or on your Steam Deck. These are the types of games that I want to be able to take portably, play a level or two. Please tell me that there's a save function at the end of each level, and that I can play a level and do something else and enjoy. So I say kickstart this, excuse me.
Samesies. I say kickstart as well. I like what they're doing. I like that they've brought it back. I like that it's a low price point, and I like that the demo does demonstrate some good work has been put in and good time and effort. And yeah, so kickstart for me as well.
Let us know in the chat if you kick it or kickstart it. We're curious. Thank you for being here. Well, Mac, it's time to move on to a segment that I like to sing every week, called Nerd Flex. Ooh. A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Mac, we got some people in the chat who I haven't seen on Twitch in a while. I'm excited that we have them here today. And so for those who are here for the first time, we do this segment every single week. Mac and I have a test bank of multiple choice gaming related questions. We answer them with no Googling, no cheating, no anything, no hints, just nothing but our noggins. And if you're here live, you have a job to do. If you'd like, put a multiple choice gaming related question in the chat, and Mac and I will try to answer it here live on the show. Sometimes you stump us. Most of the time, you do not. Well, Mac, to start off, we're going to hop into the test bank, my friend. And I'm going to press this random button that will give me a randomly generated question. Okay. It's a Capcom question. I think I know the answer to this. What Capcom franchise was rearmed in 2008? What Capcom franchise was rearmed in 2008?
I think, gosh, I feel like it's got to be something like Bionic Commando.
Yes!
Yeah?
Yes, that's what I was thinking too.
Yes!
And the reason why is because I've been looking into Bionic Commando a lot lately. I saw a copy of the Game Boy game at my local game store, and I was looking at what other versions of the game there are, and that was one that came up. So I'm 99% sure that this is Bionic Commando.
Hey, so say we all.
Final answer. And it is indeed Bionic Commando. That was one where I was pretty sure, and I didn't want to say it out loud just to see if you knew what it was too. And you did.
You tested me and I passed.
You passed. Well, let's keep things moving with another randomized question. Okay, this is interesting because I do not know this one. Which mega pop star... Oh, wait, maybe I do know this one. Which mega pop star is rumored to have composed the Sonic 3 soundtrack?
Oh, I know this one.
Yeah, have we done this before? I feel like I know the answer, but I don't know if it's because I'm smart or because we've done it before.
It's because you're smart. And also because that's just a trivia thing that a lot of people have heard about.
If you know the answer, let me guess who I think first.
Okay.
I think it's Michael Jackson.
Yep, that is exactly who I was going to say.
And it's interesting because the framing of the question, pop star, you think of King of Pop, you immediately think Michael Jackson. So I think maybe that's why
100%.
That came to my mind. So Michael Jackson, final answer. Let's see what we got here. It was Michael Jackson. Let's go. These have been easy ones.
We do have one in the chat from Galvatron. Galvatron asks, what is the nationality of the first boss of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Glass Joe? Is it Japanese, German, Canadian, Korean, American, Spanish, British, French, Russian, Swedish, or Swiss?
I thought it was Swedish, even before you read the answers.
I thought it was either going to be American or Canadian, but I don't know. And if you had that solid, inclination, even before I read the answers, I'd go with you on Swiss.
Well, let's talk through this though, because maybe I'm thinking of another boss. So Joe is not a Swedish name necessarily. I'm sure there are Swedish people who are named Joe.
True, but neither is Glass.
That's a good point, Mac. Well done. Well done. What I'm trying to remember who the other bosses are and thinking if I'm confusing him with someone else.
Oh, there's like Piston Honda. There's obviously Mike Tyson.
Soda Popinski.
I
think just Glass Joe. I'm thinking. The thing is, though, I'm pretty sure he's speaking. Well, I don't know. I think he's Swedish, but that's just me guessing.
Yeah, I'll go with you. My inclination is actually Canadian or American. I feel like probably Canadian, but you had a solid thought, first thought, best thought. Swiss. Galvatron says he is French, which is also a stereotype
What?
because he is a weak fighter and the French are perceived as cowards.
Huh.
Thanks for that. We missed it, but hey, 2 out of 3, like Meatloaf says, that ain't bad.
I'll take it. That has been Nerdflex.
All right, well, now we turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
As y'all know, I prefer to spend the time in legalese talking about things that we actually have lawsuits, we actually have contracts, we actually have things to go on. Just because there's so much out there that we don't know. And the lawsuit stuff actually usually nails that down for us. So we've got an idea of exactly what it is that, in the case of before, we know what it is that Sony is saying Tencent has done wrong. We know what it is that any of these groups is saying because they have to put it in paper, they have to put it down, they have to really decide what their best arguments are. What I don't have for legalese today is any of that nonsense, but what I do have is something that is somewhat important, somewhat newsworthy and noteworthy, and Mr. Nice Guy, I'm glad that you didn't bring it up in the news, because I was a little bit worried about that. You could have stolen all the thunder.
Tell me more.
So, have you heard, Mr. Nice Guy, about the delisting of a lot of games from Steam and itch.io?
Of course I have.
Yes.
Of course.
So, for anybody who hasn't, and I don't know how you couldn't at this point in time, there was a request, specifically a request from the payment processors, because there are only so many giants out there that are processing credit cards and things like that. You've got Visa, Mastercard, American Express, Discover, and all that. And because we've really just got a few companies that are doing those things, they sort of punch a little bit above their weight, as it would say, when they have demands that they can nicely or not so nicely make, potentially. So what has happened is some people in Australia, there's a group called Collective Shout, that has said that they are the ones responsible for this, that they wanted certain types of content taken off of Steam, taken off of, certain video games they wanted pulled from the shelves. And the game publishers weren't very inclined to acquiesce. And so they brought it up with Visa Mastercard and said, hey, we don't think you want to be processing the transactions that are for this content that we don't like, and we presume you, the credit card company, doesn't like either. That was apparently a winning claim, and Visa Mastercard told Steam and itch.io, hey, we don't have to do business with you.
That's right.
And if you don't get rid of this, we won't. And so, with that being the case, they said, hey, we want you to pull video games that don't line up with the credit card companies, whatever it is. Terms of service, our types of games that we are interested in, our types of content that we want you to be processing with money. And that has happened. So what don't we know? We don't know any of the solid things, right? We don't know what specifically is against it. We have general ideas because you can, as not parties to this, you can go and you can take a look at what sorts of things they say that they find distasteful. But beyond that, who knows? I mean, if it's a problem with, say, for example, drugs and alcohol, Stardew Valley fails. If it's a question of video games that include non-consensual situations as being a problem, there are plenty of video games. A video game that I particularly like called Final Fantasy Tactics, there is a whole story arc that originates and has a particularly large chunk of it is due to bad people and non-consensual situations. It is a little bit difficult to swallow, but at the same time, it's not a legally binding thing. It's not a lawsuit that's going on. It's just a credit card company that controls a huge majority of transactions, saying that they don't want to allow video games like that to be purchased anymore. Doesn't stop them from processing payment for videos or things of the type of nature that they find objectionable, but video games, bridge too far. Mr. Nice Guy, that's all that I've got to share on it, although I do have some words from the amazing philosophers of the 1990s that I think encapsulated this quite well. That would be the trio Salt and Pepper, when they said, "Now, who do you think you are putting your cheap 2 cents in? Don't you got nothing to do than worry about my friends?" Totally butchered that.
But I think that was just fine. I think you read it on brand, Mac.
On brand as not having any rhythm whatsoever?
I didn't say that. I just said on brand.
Yeah, very on brand. Ha!
Hey, here's what I'll say about this. So,
Yeah.
while I'm a fan of freedom of speech, like, I have a hard time arguing against what they are doing. Video games have ratings, and as they should.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if video games should have trigger warnings too. And it's hard to do that without quote unquote spoiling a game. But if there's something like, we're saying that non-consensual things, I think many know what we're talking about.
Yes.
If there's something like that in a video game, I feel like there should be some type of disclaimer, or it should be made very, very clear to the purchaser that that type of content specifically is going to be in the game. There's some controversy, a little bit of controversy going around about this game called Ready or Not right now. And it's more due to the violence that is in the game. You play as a SWAT team, and, potentially you're going into different places like schools and trying to save people. And obviously, people don't always get saved. So, use your imagination to figure out what that would look like in a game. Pretty graphic, pretty disheartening. I haven't played the game yet. But point being, while I don't agree with them targeting video games specifically, I do agree that there's a level of decency and of disclaimer that we can provide consumers when they are going to be buying this type of content.
Now, I 100% agree, and actually, the fact of the matter is, it seems as though that type of disclaimer is available precisely because of how quickly these entire sets of games were quickly pulled all in one go. Because it's not like Visa Mastercard went through and checked off all these games and was just like, hey, this is a list of the games we want. It's not like the group Collective Shout, gave them a list of games that needed to be pulled off. It's that the people at Steam, the people at itch.io, they kind of understood what the assignment was, and they pulled all those off. I don't think that the problem is that people didn't know what they were getting into, for the most part. I'm sure there were some.
This is a totally different argument that I'm making.
Oh, okay. I've misunderstood. I don't want to...
No, you're good. I'm just talking about, human decency. While I don't agree that they should target video games and not other pieces of content, I do think that maybe we, and when I say we, it's the royal we, could do a better job of making it clear what type of stuff exists in these games without just a rating, right? The rating doesn't always tell the whole tale.
Yeah, it doesn't always capture everything. And I agree with you, dude. We could always do better. I think we should do better. But even though none of these games are games that I'm interested in, you know me, dude, I go all out about how much I don't like visual novels. And that's not just because of the usual content we usually see in visual novels on Kickstarter or elsewhere. You know what I'm talking about. It's not my game. But for those people who want it, I just don't feel good about standing in the way.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, we'll see. There may very well be lawsuits a-coming. But we don't have anything yet. Yeah, although just because it's content I don't like, especially means that it's the type of thing that I need to stick up for, just because, even if it doesn't impact me, it impacts somebody.
Yeah.
And as Captain Picard would say, the first link in the chain is forged.
I don't want to beat a dead horse.
By the way, beating a dead horse would be against what Visa Mastercard stands
for. You cannot buy Red Dead Redemption 2 with their cards. So I had this professor in college, and he said something at the end of one of our courses after we had been through a particularly insightful legal discussion. He said, hopefully you leave today feeling like even criminals deserve access to a lawyer. He said, and maybe you felt that way before you ever joined my class, but hopefully you now understand why that's important and why it's innocent until proven guilty and why it's due process. So in a roundabout way, Mac, your statement about that is why I should argue for things that I disagree with is so important because, yes, terrible people who have done terrible things still deserve right to a trial, right? And people who put out games that I don't want to play still have right to freedom of speech.
Dude, 100% agree. I could hardly think of a better way to end the show, except maybe by talking about the cool, nerdy things that we are into.
Let's do it. Everyone knows how this works. Y'all are quiet in the chat. Are we being way too deep for y'all today? Mac, this is where we talk about all the cool stuff we've been watching and playing. If you're here live, let us know in the chat what you have been watching and playing, because I need some recommendations for games, honestly. Mac, what you been watching and playing?
For playing, I've been playing Stardew Valley again. My buddy and I, we just recently finished playing A Way Out. And so we needed a new 2-player game that we could play together. And so that was Stardew Valley. He's enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. It's fun to come back to it after a while. And yeah. I've also been playing one of my main sort of just waste a little bit of time games. It's called Creeper World 4, and it's a tower defense game. Really like it. That's what I've been playing. As for what I've been watching, not a lot. I've been watching Taskmaster, the most recent season that featured Jason Mantzoukas, the first American to be on that UK comedy series. Fantastic. He brings a lovely energy. If you haven't seen it, it's a good series to watch. But that's what I've been into. What about you, Mr. Nice Guy? You went to the theater.
I did. I went to the theater.
Did you catch some Shakespeare?
Went to the theater, Mac. Back when we were kids, they used to be everywhere. Now they're only in your living room with streaming over the internet and your own popcorn. No, Mac, I did go to the movies, and I saw Fantastic Four. And it's interesting because on Rotten Tomatoes, I don't want to spoil anything, but it got a lot of praise. Like, it got a lot of praise. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, I'm about to see something as good as Avengers Endgame. You know, I'm about to see, like, the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, which I thought was a great movie. It was good. It was not nearly as good as everyone made it out to be. It was a good movie. Especially considering that we're now in that post-Thanos Avengers timeline, like building up to Avengers Secret War. It was a good movie, but not as good as that old stuff. So anyway, enjoyed it. And then playing, dude, I now that I'm in this new office space here in my home, played a lot more VR this week. And when I say a lot, I got a couple games in. So I've been playing some Contractors VR.
Nice.
And messing around on some big screen, hanging out with people talking about movies. So that's it. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to episode number 350 of Two Nerds in a Pod, nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. We appreciate each and every one of you for watching and listening after the fact. Episode 350 is done, but don't forget to go vote for us in the podcast awards. And more importantly, 2 things: video games are art, and be excellent to each other. Keep it nerdy, y'all.
Bye.